Good evening. I am hereby calling to order the April 9th meeting of the Mayfield Heights City Council. Lisa, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn. Mrs. Finney.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Tressi.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. First on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which is on March 26, 2018. I trust everyone had time to read them over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the council meeting on March 26? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mano. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to the minutes? Since there are no suggested amendments, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Abstain.
Opposed? Mrs.
I was absent from the meeting.
Thank you. Mrs. Snyder is absent. The minutes will stand approved. Next on our agenda are correspondence and announcement. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. DeJohn has requested that I read this little statement that he is unable to attend council meeting this night because of a work assignment that he was unable to change. He requested that council keep ordinance 2018-15 tabled until he can be at the next council meeting on April 23rd. He believes that council was prepared to vote on this ordinance at our last meeting, and it was tabled by Mrs. Sabetta because Mrs. Snyder was not in attendance and could not cast her vote. So Mr. DeJohn would like the same courtesy this evening, and he would like to keep ordinance 2018-15 on the table until he is able to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tressi. Are there any questions for Mrs. Tressi? Anybody else have any comments? Seeing none, Mayor.
Thank you and good evening. Couple things. Community Partnership on Aging is currently accepting applications for summer home repair projects. Projects may include plumbing jobs, extensive landscaping, or ramp building. The work is done through the summer by skilled volunteers, and for more information you can contact Beta Madden, our CPA representative here at City Hall at 442-2628, or go to the city's webpage and click on the Office on Aging Human Resources tab, where you'll find a link to the CPA website, and you can get some more information there. Golden Gate parking lot improvements will begin by the probably this week, definitely by the end of April, as a prelude to the Chick-fil-A construction. The first phase will begin by blocking off the eastbound Mayfield curb lane and the west drive of Golden Gate Plaza to tie into utilities and start their paving work. The curb lane should only be closed for a day or two, with construction occurring at night. The west drive will be closed for a few weeks so traffic will be diverted to the east drive. Once the west drive is complete, they will open it back up and close off the east drive. This part of the project is scheduled for completion on June 11th. Dominion East Ohio Gas is scheduled to start work on ranch land today. The project will go from Oakville to Ridgeberry and last approximately 30 days. Shred Day is Saturday, May 5th at the Community Center between the hours of 9 and 12. There's no limit to how many boxes a resident can bring to shred, and we also will be recycling computers, laptops, and cell phones. The city receives a certificate of documenting the weight amount of materials that were shredded. Last year the city had a great turnout despite a horrible day. And lastly, it has been brought to my attention that Councilman DeJohn has chosen to use his Facebook page as a source of misinformation with regard to a proposed income tax increase that we have been discussing for over a year and a half. It is unfortunate that he is not here this evening to discuss this face-to-face, but that time will come. Mr. DeJohn has chosen to misinform the residents as to the tax hikes, scope, purpose and impact. But the truth is, we are considering a 0.5% tax increase. This, coupled with a 100% tax credit for our residents who work outside the city, we are currently at 50%, would mean that 72% of our residents would see no increase or a decrease in their taxes. This would generate approximately $5 million per year. The goal is to use this added revenue to fund our very ambitious 10-year road program that calls for more than doubling our typical annual expenditure to try and bring our streets up to an acceptable condition. Some of our streets have not seen any major repairs in a number of years. It is long overdue, and we have a plan to address this. Also, our park and pool need to be updated. The pool in particular was built in the 50s and requires costly repairs every year just to start it up, and a lot more upkeep through the season to keep it going. There has been some discussion as to earmarking the funds for certain projects. I believe, as does the finance director, that this is unnecessary, since ultimately it is up to City Council to approve any expenditures. Not as the finance director, nor as I see fit, as Mr. DeJohn commented. Having the money earmarked may tie our hands as projects change or priorities evolve. There's also misinformation being spread about using Malamed Communication as a company to run a public outreach program for the city. I originally contacted Mr. Malamed and on advice from another mayor who used him for the same purpose. I recommended his company to council, as his record and expertise speak for themselves. He has seen success in 4 other communities with similar initiatives. I did not want a chance representing this incorrectly to the residents, as it has a huge impact on city finances going forward. The Malaben proposal was brought to council during a council committee of the whole meeting 6 months before I hired him to run my campaign. There were no qualms about using his company then. Mr. DeJohn's suggestion of some type of payback or favor is a disgusting attempt to impugn my reputation and integrity, nothing more. Last month, council voted to issue notes for $4 million to cover this year's road program and purchase a plow truck and pumper for the fire department. I commend council for their foresight in approving these expenditures, but we will not be able to sustain this type of proactive planning without an increase in revenue. These are the facts. If any resident would like to discuss this, please reach out to me. I would be happy to answer any questions or concerns you have. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Mr. Mano.
Mayor, as long as we're talking about roads, this GPD group, all right, we've got Fruitland from Marcel to Mayfield listed for repair this year at $185,000. Is there any way that some of that money or all of that money can be transferred to fixing the section between Cedar and the bridge on Lander Road?
We would have to reach out to the contractor, and I'm sure, well, not the contractor, to GPD to find out what the scope of that work would cost and see. I'm sure we could do anything we want with this. We could move it to another street if you like. This is all based on recommendations, though, so far. We would have to adjust the proposal, too, that we're sending out to companies.
If I had to compare Fruitland to that section of Lander Road, Fruitland is not bad at all, but the Lander Road in that section is terrible.
I'm sure Mr. Fernaro.
It really needs attention.
It does, and it's going to be addressed. Ascot would be the street coming off, but we have made adjustments for that side of the lane.
Thank you.
I'm talking about the section between Cedar and the bridge.
Correct, and that's all going to be addressed in our Public Works.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for the mayor? Seeing none, we'll move on to our finance director, or I'm sorry, to our law director. We almost forgot you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Director of Finance, Mr. Tribby.
I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Tribby. Is there any questions for Mr. Tribby? Next on our agenda are reports of committees, commissions, and boards. Building Committee, Mrs. Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm currently working on getting a meeting together for one tabled item and 2 pending issues. Hopefully this week we'll have a date together.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Mano?
I believe at the last council meeting, we talked about that Airbnb situation and creating an ordinance to make that a permanent situation. And I thought that was supposed to go to legislative committee, and now it's on building committee.
I think it's I sent an email to Gail, and we're gonna combine it, I believe. That's what I spoke to Lisa about.
Joint Committee.
So a joint committee meeting for that issue, but we can honor it all at one time. We can hopefully have a meeting together.
All right, because the email didn't say anything about a joint meeting, and that's why I'm asking, because originally that was supposed to go to legislative.
Yeah, Lisa, did you tell me that it was under the building codes?
It would be, and the building committee had already discussed it last fall.
So it does not need to go to legislation.
It doesn't, but it could.
We could have a joint meeting.
So Mr. Murphy, how would you like us to handle that? Make it a joint committee meeting or just have under building?
You can handle it however you want. It's really up to the chairman to refer to the different committees. So I would defer to her as to what committees, if any, it should be referred to.
Well, I think if it's already started with building, why don't you continue with building then? And if Mrs. Teresi, I know she had some ideas, would like to try to make it that she's available to be there, it makes sense.
Okay, I can try and coordinate with you and let you know when we're gonna have it.
Thank you.
I'd like to be there also, so let's all, thank you.
We'll make that work.
Thank you. Anyone have any other questions for Mrs. Snyder? Legislative Committee, Mrs. Teresi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Teresi. Are there any questions for Mrs. Teresi? Finance and Audit Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There has been no meeting, so I have no report.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Is there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Okay, next we'll move to Public Works and Service Committee, Mr. Balestria.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We do have a meeting scheduled tomorrow, April the 10th, 2:30 in the afternoon to discuss the 2018 road program. The meeting will be here at City Hall and the public is welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Balestria. Are there any questions for Mr. Balestria? Seeing none, we will go to Recreation and Parks Committee, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resident registration for day camp, swim lessons, and pool passes begins Saturday, April 14th from 8 to 10:30 a.m. at the Ross DeJohn Community Center. Please visit the website for more details. Pancake breakfast will be held this coming Sunday. Join Mayor DeSico and City Council this Sunday, April 15th from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for all-you-can-eat pancakes, French toast, and sausage. Tickets can be purchased in advance from the mayor, any council member, Park and Recreation Commission member, or at City Hall. Pre-sale tickets are $5 per person, $6 at the door. Kids 6 and under eat free. Join us on Tuesday, April 24th from 12 to 2 p.m. at the DeJohn Community Center for bingo. A light lunch will be included and prizes awarded to winners of each game. The fee is $5 per person, and the registration deadline is Tuesday, April 17th. This is sponsored by the Fountains and the Greens. Join us Thursday, May 3rd at the DeJohn Community Center for our next Remember When from 5 to 7 p.m. Come and meet the wife of our 20th president, Mrs. James A. Garfield. Local costumed interpreter, Miss Anita Benedetti, will present the life and times of this most wonderful Victorian woman from Mentor, Ohio. Dinner is included and pre-registration is required by Friday, April 27th. Arbor Day is Friday, April 27th. We will be hosting an Arbor Day event at 12:30 featuring a tree planting and tips on how to plant and care for trees. We will have tree seedlings and wildflower seed available as giveaways while supplies last. Meet at the gazebo. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Are there any questions of Mr. Mano? Seeing none, we'll move on to safety and transportation. Mr. DeJohn is absent. Mrs. Teresi, I think you're the committee member.
Yes, I have no report. Thank you, Madam
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mrs. Teresi. Are there any questions for Mrs. Teresi? Next, we'll move on to Board of Zoning. Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There is a meeting tomorrow, 7 p.m. here in council chambers. There are 3 items on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Seeing none, Planning Commission, Mr. Belstria.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Planning Commission did not meet. We did not have an agenda. Therefore, I don't have a report.
Thank you, Mr. Belstria. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Belstria? Okay, next we will move on to the public portion. We now come to the public portion of the meeting. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allowed 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allowed for the entire public portion. Although it is not a time for public debate, this is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. Please know that there will be no personal attacks or comments, and they will not be allowed. Also, if you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address the council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please raise your hand and be recognized. Then approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. It is now 7:19. I will open up the public portion. Would anyone like to be heard tonight? Sir, in the front row.
Hi, my name is Tim. Excuse me, I have a very difficult time speaking. My name is Tim Bernatchez. I live at 1601 Chelmsford. My concern tonight is for the Facebook posting of the potential tax coming up. And the fact that it may go into the general fund is a major concern to me. Taxes in my whole lifetime are meant to be some kind of fund specific for that money. $5 million is way too much to throw into a general fund. That's just an opinion. And to have current capital to be spent for advertising, to me, how to give more taxes specific is against my moral fiber. I don't think the city should be spending money. It does sell me on a tax. That's an opinion there too. And I am very concerned that the issue will be tabled again tonight. I hope it will be. Give all members a chance to be active in the vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else like to be woman in the pink over there, please?
Hi, my name is Holly Caswell, and I live at 1396 Belrose Road. I'm also here because of the proposed tax increase. I thank you, Mayor DeSico, for addressing that because once us residents that do not come to all of these meetings heard about this, this is, a cause for concern. Just like the gentleman that just spoke, I think the $5 million being put in a general fund is a concern of the residents. Social media, it is a concern that they have, just so you do know. Also, I would just like to state, I do get some emails from several of the council members when there's issues that, the residents would have a great deal of interest in. I didn't see anything on a Facebook page, although I'm not friends with John on Facebook page, but I did get emails from several people. I appreciate that because, our lives are busy just like yours are, and we don't always have time to come to the meetings. I have a couple questions. Is Melamede only getting paid, if you do use them, the $48,700 for the 4 months, or would they also get a percentage of the $5 million?
Actually, this is not the time really to ask questions, Mayor.
Okay.
Did you
I
want
just
to
thought
answer
that he
her?
would answer questions because he did
No,
say.
he doesn't get any bonus if the tax goes into effect.
Okay, all right. And then, does council have, and again, you may not want to answer this, it's just a question I have. Does, council have a set amount, like, for services such as this? If it does not exceed a certain amount, then can it just be passed, or, no matter what, would something, be put into, you know, the, agenda and voted upon as a proposal?
There's a certain amount that the mayor can approve without council approval, but it's a small amount, and normally, even if it was within that amount, with this type of contract, with this type of service, I'd rather have council's input on it and have their ability to weigh in on it.
Thank you, and we appreciate that too, as I'm sure council does. The last thing I have is what is, again, a concern, is this amount that, the, Melamed, or however you say that company again, the amount for, them, to lead this, campaign, sort of, or, you know, to get the, this, proposal, you know, for the people to vote on. You don't, I mean, I just personally would think that, this is something that, and I know this gentleman, he was concerned about the amount to being spent. I just would think that, this is something that, you know, you as the mayor and city council would be able to handle, and, you know, part of your job of being, politicians. And, again, I'm glad, like I stated before, that city council and you know, any of city council and the mayor, you know, letting some of us that have gotten involved recently due to things and coming to some of these meetings, you know, on certain issues, it's a good way of, you know, feeling like we are represented and the citizens and the city is cared about. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else who'd like to speak this evening? Sir?
Hi, my name is Brian Kaminsky. I live at 1806 Lander. What is the forum on this topic?
Excuse me?
Tax.
This is just right now, you're in the public portion of the meeting, and you're allowed to just give your comments.
I'm new here. I don't.
Okay, yes, so if you would like to have a discussion about it, I'm sure you could call the mayor tomorrow and he'd be happy to talk to you.
But will there be a community meeting?
Oh, there'll be several, of course, yes, lots.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I thought you meant tonight. Anybody else? In the back there? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public portion at 7:25. We will move on to resolutions. We'll begin with Resolution 2018-22. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2018-22, a resolution declaring Friday, April 27, 2018 as Arbor Day in the city of Mayfield Heights, Ohio. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Ballestria?
Yes.
Mr. DeJan, I'm sorry, Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Ballestria, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Is there any discussion?
Madam President?
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes. May I ask that it be read in full since?
We will after we take the vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please, Lisa?
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. Ballestria?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Mayor?
Okay, this is resolution number 2018-22, introduced by myself and all members of council. A resolution declaring Friday, April 27, 2018 as Arbor Day in the city of Mayfield Heights, Ohio. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas in 1953, the state of Ohio declared the last Friday in April the official state celebration of Arbor Day, and in 1970, President Nixon proclaimed the last, the last Friday in April National Arbor Day. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees are a valuable community asset for many reasons, with public health being the least known. Trees filter the air, sequester carbon, and provide oxygen, reduce gasoline evaporation, and prolong the life of asphalt with their shade, encourage healthful outdoor activities that fight obesity, reduce cholesterol and increase brain functions, reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and give an overall feeling of restoration, and encourage people to be outside, which reduces crime and promotes creativity in children. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city reduce erosion, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas in celebration of Arbor Day 2018, the city of Mayfield Heights will plant a tree in the city park. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, that the administration and the Mayfield Heights City Council declare Friday, April 27, 2018 as the third annual Arbor Day in the city of Mayfield Heights.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor. We appreciate that. Now we will move on to the tabled resolution number 2018-15. This item was tabled on March 26th. Mr. Murphy.
It's been read 3 times, so it's currently on table. It would be appropriate if there's a motion and a second and a vote to remove it from table and consider it.
Thank you. Is there a motion to remove from the table?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestria. Second? I'll second it. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Tressi?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
No.
Mrs. Snyder?
No.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. Balestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. The resolution 2018-15 will stay on the table. Next is ordinance 2018-11, which is on third reading. Mr. Murphy? Oh, you don't need to read it again?
No.
Okay.
I'll read it, third reading.
Okay.
Ordinance number 2018-11, an ordinance amending chapter 794 of the codified ordinances of the city of Mayfield Heights regarding municipal income tax by amending section 794.05 and enacting 794.27 and declaring an emergency. Third reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Balestria, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Mr. Tribby, did you have anything? I know we talked about this a lot. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Only that this has nothing to do with the income tax rate and credits or anything like that. This is just an ordinance that we need to pass to be in compliance with state statutes.
Thank you so much. Could I have a roll call, please, Lisa?
Mr. Balestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Ordinance 2018-11 has been approved. Next is ordinance 2018-12. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ordinance number 2018-12, an ordinance amending Chapter 794 of the codified ordinances of the city of Mayfield Heights regarding municipal income tax by amending section 794.03 and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. Balestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
No.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes. Do we suspend?
You do not have
We do
suspension.
not
Third
suspend.
reading.
Okay, so we will move 2018-12 to third reading. Next are motions. Motion A, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Motion A to advertise for bids for concrete.
Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Snyder, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Is there any discussion? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is approved. Next, motion B.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Motion B to advertise for bids for asphalt.
Once again, I think it's pretty explanatory. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion is approved. Seeing that's done, is there any other further new business or comments from our council? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs.
Second.
Sabetta, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Roll call, please. Oh, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you for being here.